Hey you guys, Stockton here from Better Than Data, and in this video we're going to be building off of this topic of BigQuery and how to connect it to Looker Studio. And what we're going to do is show you how to efficiently connect the Looker Studio to BigQuery using views, scheduled queries, and partition tables to make sure that it is efficient and useful and it's connected to BigQuery, right? And using GA4. So we're going to go through some queries, we're going to do views, we're going to talk about scheduled queries, and we're going to connect it to Looker Studio. So let's jump in. We teach all of this stuff over at Better Than Data. If you're interested in learning more about BigQuery or getting in on the Better Than Data world, what you can do is head on over to betterthandata.com/YouTube, this link right here. You can start by getting the conversion rate cheat sheet. This is a gut check conversion rate that we use for our clients to determine if certain channels are being profitable, certain offer types are being profitable. Otherwise, we measure everything, right? But this is kind of our gut check conversion rate checklist cheat sheet right here. So let's dive in now. All right, so let me find the right button. Here we go. Okay. So starting off right here inside of our BigQuery container, just a quick recap. We're inside of our project. Then inside the project, which is this top level, we have data sets. So the Google Analytics export is this data set right here. So it's analytics underscore and then the property ID. So analytics underscore property ID. And then we have the events and events intraday tables. So this is the table that every day contains, it's a partition table, and every day you can see that we have 39 days worth of data here. And then the intraday table is almost the real-time data. So there's 2 days worth of data, including today itself, that is in the intraday table. So if you want to query in the GA4 export today's data or even yesterday's data in this case, then you have to query across the events intraday table as well. And then we have this view, so you can tell here that this kind of has a different icon here. This is a view inside of BigQuery, and a view is a table created from a query. So we ran a query, we saved that output as a view, and so this now has that. Now, one thing to clarify is that views, when you query a view, the view queries the live data set that the query is based off of. So if I was to grab this query here and we were to say query, and I was just going to say select all, something like this, then this is actually querying the live database. So what we're going to do is we're going to set up scheduled queries so that it queries the live database once, creates a snapshot of that data, and then we can connect that to Looker Studio. So we're going to get into all of that. So first of all, let's begin by creating a little query here. So let's close this, and let's close this. Let's go to our events table here, and I'm just going to click on event date to open up the query panel. Let's just move it to the left. And this way it has my table ID and everything there. So we don't need this limit. Let's format this. And then what we want to change here is make this a star so that we query all of the days and not just the single day. So here we have our day. The other things we're going to want for our case here is we're not going to do any aggregation inside of BigQuery because we want to do that aggregation inside of Looker Studio. So we're going to grab the event date. Let's grab the event name. And these come from the schema that the table has. So we're going to grab the event date, we're going to grab the event name, then we're going to grab the session ID and the user ID. And I'll show you why we use those. So in order to grab the session ID, we have to go into the event parameters object here. And we want to grab the GA session ID key, and the value, we want the int value. So we want to grab the int value from this event params object or nested data, and then we want to get this value when the key equals GA session ID. So we're going to go scalar subquery, so select value.int value from the unnested event params where the key is equal to GA session ID, like that. Now, in order to get the more useful session ID, what we're going to do is concatenate this with the user pseudo ID. So let's do concat like this. And then we're going to do a underscore to separate the two. And then we're going to use grab the user sudo ID, close the concatenation, and this is our session ID, like that. Okay, let's let it run. Okay, it looks good. Looks like didn't misspell it. I always misspell it. Now what we're going to do is grab the user ID. So for that is just simply the user sudo ID as user ID. So we're giving all of these aliases as well. So we've got the event date, we've got the event name, we've got the session ID and the user ID. So now if we kind of just click off of this, let's hit run and see what data we come back with. So we're not grouping by anything, we're not aggregating anything. What we should see is for every row represents an event per day per session. So here we're going to have how many rows? We have 42,000 rows of data here in our little query. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a view from this, and then we're going to query that view with another little query and build a scheduled query from that query. So let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to hit save view. Let's put this in our just data set here, and the table we're going to call daily events session ID, something like that. So now we have our daily events session ID view. So if we were to look at this, it is now a kind of a table that is saved from the query we just made. So now we can query this view. So if I select all from this table, selecting all from this table is the exact same thing as what we did, well, the query before. So let's hit run just to see that. We'll format this. And there we go. Okay, but now that we have this kind of prepped data, we can do another query on it. I want to show you some cool things that you can do. So now what we want to do is actually get just a daily summary. So here we have a daily, it's not aggregated by day, so now we want to do some aggregations. So we are going to actually select the columns individually. So event date has our date. And then we have our event name and our session ID and user ID. So because we're going to aggregate by daily, we need to aggregate some of these events. So if we want a total count of sessions, then what we do is we count distinct session IDs. If we want a total count of users for that day, we count distinct the user ID. So let's get our total count of sessions for the day. So let's go count distinct session ID. And we define the session ID in the previous query. So we got count distinct session ID. We're going to do the same for the user's ID to get a count distinct of users. And actually, let's give this an alias. So this is now sessions. It's no longer individual session IDs. It's an aggregation of sessions, total sessions. So count distinct user ID as users. And let's now get a count of page views. So to do that, what we can do is we can say if the event name equals to page view, then the first part here is our condition. So is the event name equal to page view? If yes, so the next condition here, we're going to say 1. So add 1, otherwise 0. And we'll say as we'll call it page views. Okay, and we can use the same logic to get a total count per day of any event. So we can now come back and say if event name is view item, then count it as 1. And now let's call this view item. So let's do purchases. Then 1 as purchases, and so on and so forth, just like that. Okay, and now it's telling us that event date is not grouped or aggregated, which you can't really see, but that's what it says here. It's not aggregated, so we actually do need to group by. So we're going to say group by event date. So everything else is becoming a metric. but it will be grouped by event date. So what we'd expect is to have one row per day. And here we have a little error. So what is this saying? Oh, we have to, we did the if statement, but we need to aggregate these as well. So we haven't aggregated this yet. So we are going to just say sum of this. We're doing sum because it's adding up all the ones. So for every event name of page view, it'll add 1. So we're going to sum all the ones up and get our count. So sum here as well. Sum like this. Okay. Now when we run this, we should have one row per day, and we would expect to have the data, so sessions of that day, users for that day, page views, view items on that day, and purchases on that day. So this is looking good. Of course, we could order this if we wanted to. However, keep in mind that we will not be ordering by anything when we connect to Looker Studio. So this is purely for just us to have a visual thing in BigQuery itself. Order by event date descending, for example. So we get the latest date first, which is this today? I don't know. Here we are though. So we have every day broken down by sessions, users, we got page views, view item purchases, and we could use this kind of logic to extract any event name that we want and get a count for it broken down by day. So this is one kind of report that is pretty useful and handy. It started out with this table, with this query here that we can see. So I can go edit query. So it started out with this to generate a view, and now we're building a new query based off of that view. And what we're going to do now is remove the order by, and we're going to build a scheduled query off of this query that we just created here. So this is the output table we want to connect to Looker Studio, but we don't want to query this every time, right? If we were to query this table here, this view queries the entire data set. So we want to just take snapshots of this. Like I know I have up to yesterday, so I want to just snapshot this and then query this snapshotted data instead of re-querying the database, the full database every time a report loads. I change pages, I change date range, all of that sort of stuff. So we're going to save this as a query, and we're going to schedule it. So saving it just kind of saves this for later. We're actually just going to go right to schedule. So let's go schedule, create new scheduled query, and we want to tell it when to take this snapshot. So we're going to say daily events summary. We want it you can do, up to every 60 minutes if you want, or more frequent. You can see other things. We just want every day. Technically you could do every, I don't know, maybe let's do it every 12 hours just for fun. Start now and never. And we want to create a new table for this. So our data set, we're going to choose our analytics data set here. So analytics, choose that one. Our table ID inside of this data set, let's just call it the same that we did up here, daily events summary, daily events summary. And then destination table partitioning field, this is where it becomes really important to make your queries efficient. So we're going to choose event date as the partitioning field. And so what this will do is it'll almost do a pre-query. So when Looker Studio is connecting to this view or this table that we're creating a scheduled query from, then it will only query the data that is within the partitioned date range. So if we're in Looker Studio, we're querying the last 7 days, then it actually will only come to BigQuery and look in the last 7 days instead of the entire data set. So it's another method of making it more efficient and cost effective inside of BigQuery. So we took the entire gigantic data set, right? The entire analytics GA4 export. We created a view off of that to get just the data we want. Now we're creating a scheduled query to query that view, and then we're going to partition it and set it to be a schedule. So this is the table we connect to Looker Studio. So let's choose our region. Oh, it's already locked in. It's good to go. Advanced options. I don't think we need to do anything else here. And let's hit save. Oh, gotta log in. We'll hit allow. Okay, so now what's happening, right? Well, what you'll notice is there's a tab over here called Data Transfers. Oh, that's not it. Scheduled Queries. So confident in saying that, was so wrong. Scheduled Queries. And we look in Scheduled Queries, we can see that our scheduled query that we just created is right here, Daily Events Summary, and it's currently running, right? So right now it's creating that query, it's running that query, and it's going to set the data as into that new table that we asked it to. So if we kind of reload the page here, let's see if it is done. Nope, still running. So that might take just a few minutes, but it will run. We can see right here every 12 hours. So let's wait just 30 more seconds for this to finish running. Okay, now that that has finished running, it actually is telling us that we have an error. So let's go debug this a little bit and see why. So here is the events summary, and at this run, it's telling us that the field specified for the day partitioning can only be a timestamp, has to be a date, and right now it's a string. So we need to actually edit this scheduled query to make the date a date instead of just a string. So let's hit edit up here in our scheduled query. And then here at the event date field, we're going to parse date this. So I need to remember the exact SQL to make this happen. Let's see. All right, the format that we are using for this is this one right here, parse date with this format. So take in this field, format as this, and rename as event date. So let's run this. And here we still have the event date with all of the daily breakdown of things. Okay, so what we need to do now is save. Let's go back to update our scheduled query. So keep everything the same. Looks good, looks good, looks good. And actually one thing we're going to do here is overwrite the table. So every time this runs, it's just gonna blow out everything. But once it does that once, so it'll only do that once every 12 hours, we're going to just be querying this new scheduled query. So we'll hit save. Scheduled query has been updated. So let's come back to our scheduled queries on the left. Let's reload, and we should see a new one. Running. To kick this off, let's actually just schedule a backfill. So let's just hit schedule backfill and run this so that it will run it right now. That's kind of like an on-demand one. So if you need to manually run a scheduled query, you just do a schedule backfill. So to manually run that, let's do it right now. And let's reload. And here it is. Here's our new daily events summary table it's going to build. So we'll wait just 30 seconds for this one. All right, now that that job is complete, the scheduled query has run. If we come back to our scheduled workspace here, we should actually be able to see that new table that it created. And that is now here. So we have our daily event summary. You also notice the little icon here is again slightly different than the other ones. So this is our new partitioned table that we created. So if we look at this, we'll see that it has all of our fields. We have our date. These are integers or numbers, and it's telling us that it is a partitioned table. So now what we want to do is connect this new table that we created to Looker Studio. So let's go resources, manage added data sources, add a data source. We're going to choose BigQuery, select your project, the data set, and then finally the table. So the new one we just created is the daily events summary table. And then here you want to select use event date as the date range dimension because it is partitioned. It recognizes that, and this will make your queries more efficient. So hit add. And now we can begin to kind of visualize some of this data. So here we have our daily event summary. Let's just bring out a table that has these dimensions ready here for us. So metric, say I don't want a chart, I want a table. So we've got our date, and then let's just put in the different things here. So page views, purchases, sessions, we can put it all in this table. And you should notice how fast this is. Because we've done the summary ahead of time, we've created the view, we queried the view with a scheduled query, and now we connected the scheduled query to this. Let's see, that is impossible to read. So let's come here and find where is the body background. Header background, odd row, cell border. I feel like I'm missing something here. Table footer, table body, background and border. There it is. Okay, there it is. So we have our date. There should only be one row per date, and then a summary of all of those. And of course, on top of this, you could build out just individual scorecards for each one of the things. And the beauty of this is not only is it fast, it's efficient, and it's dynamic. So we can say last 7 days, this will change all of these data pieces here. We could choose last 14 days, and it does that. And because it's connected to BigQuery, it will be really fast and really efficient. So that is how we would use views, scheduled queries, partitioning, and connect it to Looker Studio. Let me know if you have any questions.